Hey everybody. I'm doing my best. Grab the alcoholism by the freaking throat because it pissed you off, and then slowly clench because they took all of your Angus meat. And that being said, we haven't done this in a while. I'm behind on everything. I know. I'm doing my best here. Okay, I'm doing what I can. Let's jump in. I guess let's do it. So guess what? It's MrBallen. I probably blow some eardrums with that one. Okay, so this is MrBallen. Hiker gets eaten alive and lives. So did the creature take a piece of him and then he ran away? Like, I'm just imagining someone getting part of their arm ripped off and then just putting a tourniquet on and then just running through the woods. It's terrible, but I'm just like, oh man, that's metal. Anyway, like I said, grab your alcoholism, by the throat because it took your Angus beef. And let's start this, shall we?
In order to appreciate today's story, I actually have to give something away right now, and that is the main character survives. The reason I have to tell you that is because during this story, there is a really intense event that happens, and I use really specific descriptions for how something looked, how something felt, how something smelled, and if you didn't know I was pulling that from the survivor who lived to tell the tale, you might think I was just making it up, but I'm not. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button asks you to pick up some cereal for them, say yes, and then go to the store and buy the big single biscuit shredded wheat cereal. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. On July
Love MrBallen's intro!
19th, 2013, 49-year-old Matt Dyer climbed on board a tiny 19-seat Twin Otter airplane that was parked on the tarmac of the Montreal International Airport in Canada. Matt was about to take off on the first of two flights that would take him and 7 other adventurous people deep into one of the most remote and wild regions in North America. For Matt, this trip was going to be the most amazing journey of his life. He had seen the ad for this 2-week-long expedition about a year earlier when he was looking through a magazine put out by an environmental organization called the Sierra Club. Now, even though Matt was a lawyer, he didn't make much money. He lived in this tiny town in central Maine where he made a living by offering either free or very low-cost legal assistance for some of the state's poorest residents. But Matt was an avid outdoorsman, and when he saw the opportunity to explore one of Canada's newest national parks that was so far north it was practically in the Arctic Circle, he decided the hefty $6,000 price tag was well worth it. 2.5 hours later, after flying over 900 miles due north away from the airport in Montreal, the Twin Otter airplane that Matt and the others were riding on touched down on a narrow gravel landing strip situated between this huge forest on a mountainside and a river on the other side. After climbing off the plane with all of their equipment, Matt and the 7 others hustled their way over to this stretch of flimsy plywood buildings that lined the runway. These buildings and this entire area they were in was not a part of this new national park they were going to. This was like their staging area to prepare and get ready before catching another flight that would bring them into the park. And so Matt and the 7 other people he was with, which included the 2 trip leaders from the Sierra Club, they would stay at this temporary base camp for the next couple of days, going over their hiking routes and talking about emergency procedures and protocols. And then after those 2 days were up, The group felt like they were ready. And so the group packed up all their things and they boarded the tiny float plane out on the water that would take them to their final destination, this new Canadian national park, better known as the Torngat Mountains. 45 minutes later, the pilot of the float plane began to descend through the clouds to make their landing on a little water inlet. And as the pilot did that, Matt and the 7 others were able to look out the window and actually see the Torngat Mountains for the first time. Now, all of them had seen dozens and dozens of pictures of this area, but seeing it for the first time in person was still shocking. The area looks like an alien planet. The wilderness in and around the Torngats is not the same kind of wilderness we think of when we think about going hiking in the forest or going camping or something. No, the wilderness in the Torngats is primordial. It's like you're looking out at a place from the very beginning of time, like dinosaurs should be walking around this area. As far as Matt could see, in any direction were these huge, jagged mountains that had been carved out of the earth by glaciers hundreds of thousands of years ago, and those same glaciers had created hundreds of waterways between the mountains called fjords that almost looked like blue-veined fingers.
Oh, man. I can't wait till I can afford to go out places again. Can't wait. Can't wait. Because this is definitely one place I would like to go. But of course, I'm going to have, like, a few people with me. Duh. We're all going to be armed. But if Canada doesn't allow that, I'm just not going to go. If Canada doesn't allow that, I just won't go. Like I've told y'all before. I'll never go any place where they force me to be disarmed and be a victim and prey for those that they want to... Okay, so those that disarm you, here's the agenda. They want you to suffer. They want you to be a victim. So that they can keep getting voted in to say they'll fix the problems. I will never participate in that at all. So yeah, like I say all the time, safety and security. Don't compromise. And I never do. I carry everywhere. I'm ready everywhere. I'm armed everywhere. Literally everywhere. There's no place I will go that I will not be armed. And if there's a place that says I can't be armed there, well, I'm not going. So yeah, I think the only thing that would stop me from visiting this place would be if they were like, "Oh, you can't be armed and prepared to defend yourself there," which, I mean, I don't know if they do or don't. I have to look it up, but I will never go any place where that is a thing. Not at all. But yeah, Bob, I really wish I could see something like this, but it wouldn't be worth going to somewhere remote and desolate like this unless you're armed and prepared. Otherwise, it is not worth it.
And even from high up in the plane, Matt could look down and the water of these fjords were so clear that he could see these speckled backs of brown trout swimming beneath the surface. But while this landscape was undoubtedly spectacularly beautiful and pristine and totally incredible, it was equal parts unwelcoming to people. There are no roads in the Torngats, there's no campsites, there's no facilities, there's no internet, there's no cell phone, and the weather is unbelievably harsh. It's freezing cold and wet most of the time, and then even when it's a little bit warm and a little bit nice there, the weather can change in an instant and become freezing cold and wet all over again. And so, as such, the handful of visitors that go into this area every year are expected to be 100% self-reliant, because this really is one of the most dangerous wild regions in the world. But
yeah, buddy. Sounds like my kind of place. All I would really need is like I'd say about 2 months of supplies for myself, which isn't too much. I can carry all of that easily. Fire making stuff to make fire with. What else? Some kind of insulation. which you could do with like a mylar blanket or whatever, or an aluminum blanket or something. Definitely proper. Definitely some kind of proper attire for the area, because I assume I would want something that allows me to somewhat blend in to the environment. So greens and browns seem like the most common there. So wearing greens and browns would probably be best. And definitely would need a weapon. Would definitely need a weapon. Um, and something waterproof and windproof. So something like Gore-Tex. Gore-Tex, but I would have to line it. I'd have to line the outside of the Gore-Tex. Also, actually, it wouldn't have been the first time that I made a ghillie out of Gore-Tex, using Gore-Tex as the base. Or better yet, actually a windbreaker, 3 levels of windbreaker actually would be good. That would work. Um, and then because windbreakers are also waterproof, but I'm talking about military equipment, right? Um, I'm not aware of any other types of outdoors equipment that's similar to what I'm talking about. Um, but the Equic system works really well. Um, so I would need 3 levels of that, especially if it gets down to like -50. No, I would just need like 3 levels. Um, and then the inner wear would be wick. Yeah, it'd be wick type stuff. So like the polyepirene, blah, the stuff that doesn't soak up, that doesn't freaking absorb anything. You'd wear that like over your skin as kind of like an inner insulation under the windbreaker. And then outside the windbreaker, though, what you would want to do is you want to get it real dirty. You want to get it super dirty. Like you want to roll around and you want to get all the muck and dirt and like stuff on it as you possibly want, so that not only do you more easily match the environment, but also you're going to over time mostly get rid of your unique peculiar scent. And so to do that, you gotta like dig a bunch of the ground, and you gotta roll around in it, get it all wet and mucky and icky and yucky, like cover the windbreaker, all 3 level Equic stuff in it. Um, Not only that, uh, not just that and scent, but but also just in case you're worried about somebody looking at you through a certain type of sights. It helps with that too, because stuff that is stuff like that that's just by itself can be pretty reflective. That's why you want to like, kind of like they do in sniper school, where you're like in the swamp and you're freaking like you are dunking yourself in that muddy, murky, blah water, and then you go to the bog area and you like roll around in the bog and you get your hat in it, and you're like you're absorbing that stuff. You are slamming your face in the mud, also, and that helps a great deal. Um, but yeah, you'd want to definitely do something like that, or at least that's what I would do if I was out in a place like this, if I ever get to see it. What else? Emergency kits, at least 2 of them, with splints and everything else possible that you would need. And I would say it would be a toss up whether or not I get something which I would use to cook food with, or if I would bring out rations and stuff that are non-perishable. That's kind of like a super constituted like ration bar or something like that. I'd probably bring something like that instead. Easier to eat. Wash it down with water. Because if you're cooking and stuff like that, then you can attract whatever it is that lives out there, and that'd be a huge mistake. And then you want the type of ration bars that come with, and you want Ziploc bags. Ziploc bags are a must. That way you can take your trash, zip it up, airtight, throw it back in your bag. It's not going to leave a scent that way, and it's not going to attract any animals because they're not going to smell it through the plastic and the bag. It's just too much. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop rambling. Let's keep going. My bad. I've already made this way too long.
But for Matt, as he looked out his window and surveyed this landscape, he wasn't second-guessing his decision to go into this hostile environment. No. I mean, the reason he was willing to fork over all that money to go on this trip is because he really wanted to experience extreme wilderness firsthand. And so finally, the pilot of the float plane came into land on this little water inlet, and then the pilot ferried the craft over to this beach, and then Matt and the 7 others piled off onto land with all of their things, and then as the pilot turned around and left, the 2 Sierra Club trip leaders, a 61-year-old man named Rich Gross and a 60-year-old woman named Marta Chase, told the group to pick up their things and follow them. And so Rich and Marta led the hikers about 500 feet away from where they had just been dropped off, up to this slightly elevated, mostly flat area that kind of overlooked the fjord and had this incredible view of all the mountains around them. Now, unlike the temporary base camp they had been at for the past couple of days, this camp was nowhere near any forests. They were basically on a wide open plain that kind of went right up into these mountains. So it's very wide open where they're staying. And so after Rich and Marta instructed the group where to set up their tents, Matt and the others got to doing that, and then after they were all set up, Rich and Marta put a small electric fence around the perimeter of their tents to keep any nosy animals out, and then the group headed up a little bit higher on this mountain near them to take their first group photo. And in this photo,
I mean, look, okay, not to be too serious, but to be kind of serious. You got a whole load of senior citizens here. You always want to go with a diverse group. Or the younger the average age of the group is, the better, because then you have people that are strong, young, and tough, and resilient, and who can bounce back from things pretty quickly. It's an unfortunate fact, but the older people get, right, the harder it is for them to do stuff. And then if something happens to most of the group, what then? Right? Now, yes, people are going to say, oh, it's the same as if you were younger. Kind of, but not. If you got a diverse group of younger people are much more resilient physically to a huge margin, a huge degree. And I don't mean in the sense of like, oh, well, they're better than them. No, as in if a bunch of these people go down for any reason, you're going to have somebody who is basically like very, 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 very useful for labor. Okay, I'll say that much. I'll just say that. Okay, people aren't going to like that. They'll be like, "Oh, you just think of me as an whatever." No, but that's true. You want to have a mixed and diverse group. You always do, or as mixed and diverse as you can when it comes to like different ages. This is all pretty much senior citizens at this point. And it would be so incredibly easy for something to go catastrophically wrong here. Even worse than most other things, because of everybody's advanced age. Yeah, I'm sure they're good. I'm sure they're fine. I'm sure they're all right for the most part. But whatever. Look, let's just go.
Photo, they all look so happy and so excited for what's to come. And over the next couple of days, their trip would go exactly to plan. During the daytime hours, they would hike all of their pre-planned hiking routes all over the mountains and down near the water. And at night, they would eat their food and drink fresh water from the fjord and swap stories from back home. But their perfect trip was about to become a nightmare. I've been married to my wife, Amanda, for nearly 12 years, and I just love her so much. She's so thoughtful, so kind, an amazing mother, and so this Christmas, I wanted to get her something extra special to show her how much I care. And what's more special than a pet, middle-aged rabid skunk? And so me and old Lungy hopped on my nuclear-powered laptop and began slapping away at the keys to navigate to an online vendor that sold rab skunks. But as soon as I clicked on the link, www.weselllrabidskunksandalsopudding.com, I knew I had made a terrible mistake. That website was riddled with malware, and so immediately my laptop began to melt down and literally exploded. Luckily, Lungy shielded me from the blast, and then after the nuclear winter had subsided, Lungy put on... And then after the nuclear winter had subsided, Lungy put on his traditional gakti and he said, Lopeta uden drayekeshen, ayutaninen, rokeshta roidi nordvpn which of...
A gakti is a piece of traditional clothing worn by the Sami in northern areas of Finland. Just what the hell? And he's speaking actual Finnish. Oh wait, it says it down. Oh man, I'm tired. All right, let's go.
Of course, in Finnish means stop causing nuclear explosions. Sign up for NordVPN. A VPN, or virtual private network, is a service. Sign up for NordVPN today. Right now, you're explode with annoying ads and botnet. Tired of your Christmas shopping turning into nuclear explosion.
I apologize, y'all. I had to skip it. I'm like going in and out of yes. Yeah, I'm tired. All right, let's go. Yeah, wait. What did I skip, though? What did I skip? Oh, yeah, the ad. Okay, let's go.
In the early evening hours of Tuesday, July 23rd, so 2 days after the group arrived in the Torngat Mountains, Matt and the others returned from one of their hikes. Now, the day had been cold and rainy, but the group was in good spirits. This was their last day at this particular camping spot. The next morning, they were going to pack up and head farther inland to their next camping spot. After Matt and the others had put their gear back inside of their tents, they came back out to see that Rich and Marta, the two trip leads, had organized a special feast for the group to celebrate the successful beginning of their trip. And so the group all sat around eating salami and crackers and drinking rum mixed with lemonade as they talked excitedly about the next couple of days and what they could expect.
And let me guess, they attracted some predatory animals, and that's all she wrote. Let's go. And I bet you they were all unarmed, too. They were probably all unarmed, aren't they? Wonderful.
At some point during the festivities, Matt was tired, and so he broke away from the group. He climbed back inside of his tent, got inside of his sleeping bag, and before long, he was fast asleep. A few hours later, around 3:30 in the morning, Matt suddenly woke up. He He had no idea what had woken him up, and so for a second, he just lay there listening to the outside world and just kind of staring straight up. Now, the moon was out that night, so there was some illumination, and as he looked straight up at the underside of his tent, he sees this huge figure move across the side of his tent and then stop right on top of him. And then before Matt's brain could process what was happening, this huge figure began pressing down on the fabric of Matt's tent. And so he's seeing his tent collapsing in on him. Matt's not doing anything. He's not saying anything. He's just watching in horror. And then suddenly the tent rips open and these two arms reach into the tent and they grab at Matt. And Matt threw his hands up in defense and screamed out for help. And as he did that, he suddenly felt this vice-like grip on the top of his head, and then before long he was being pulled out of the hole in his tent out into the night. And as Matt is being dragged along on the ground, having no idea what's going on, he can't move. All he can hear is this crunching sound, which he would later find out was the sound of his skull and jaw breaking. And he started to smell this horrible rotten fish smell, and then he felt what felt like saliva coming over his face. And then Matt began kind of trying to look around because he couldn't really move his head, and he noticed all he could see was white fur. And it was then that Matt realized he was in the jaws of one of the world's most powerful and deadliest predators. Standing 10 feet tall on its hind legs and weighing as much as 1,700 pounds, the North American polar bear sits right on top of the Arctic food chain. And now this apex predator was dragging Matt by the skull down to the beach where Matt knew he would be eaten, even if Matt was still alive when the eating began. When the bear first ripped open Matt's tent and bit down on the top of his skull, Matt let out that scream, and it actually woke up the entire camp. And one of the first people to emerge from their tents to see what was going on was one of the trip leaders, Marta. And so she jumps out of her tent, and just 3 feet away from her, she sees this huge polar bear on its hind legs diving into the tent to get after Matt. And so Marta instinctively yells out to Rich to get his flare gun, and she dove back into her tent to retrieve her own flare gun. But by the time she and Rich had both emerged, gun in hand, this polar bear had already dragged Matt 200 feet away from the camp. And by this point, the other hikers in the group had also emerged from their tents, and after realizing what was going on, they just stood there, absolutely paralyzed with shock, staring at this bear dragging one of their companions down to the beach to be killed.
Are y'all kidding me? A flare gun? Is that it? That's all you have? To go up against one of the most powerful and vicious creatures to ever exist, and you have a flare gun? What the hell? Dude, I love Canadians. They're some of the nicest people ever. But this video makes them seem like they're absolutely some of the stupendously stupidest people to ever exist. Like, a flare gun? Are you shitting me? A flare gun. That's it? Where's a shotgun with birdshot at least? Pump a few rounds into the side, it's going to let him go real fast and start running off. Or you'll piss it off and you'll have to use buckshot and slug. And then you'll just kill it at that point. And everybody's going to be like, no, don't kill it. No. Oh, shut up. You're not out there fighting for your life, so you've got no say in the matter. Or at least you shouldn't. Unfortunately, you do. I mean, look, I would be happier if they all had, like, I don't know, like, 38 specials or something. 38 specials. If they all had 38 specials with them. Good old-fashioned freaking revolvers. I'd be happier with that than freaking flare guns. Flare guns aren't going to do nothing. They will do nothing. Maybe, possibly scare off the bear. Possibly. But is it going to stop it? in a charge? Is it gonna inflict enough damage and pain to where the bear is gonna decide this prey is not worth it? No, absolutely it won't. Golly jeez. Does someone at least have like a 45 or something? Whatever. This man. Let's keep going. I mean, I know he survives, but still. If he had a gun right next to him, he could have emptied that sucker into the bear's face.
Then, after Rich fired his flare gun generally in the direction of the bear, it kind of snapped the group out of their paralysis, and then moments later, they were all screaming and banging pots and pans to try to terrify the bear into releasing Matt from its jaws. Matt couldn't hear the sounds of his companions calling out to try to save him, nor did Matt feel any pain. He was in shock. The only thing going through Matt's head as he was being dragged along the ground to the beach was, I'm going to die. I'm either going to die on the way to the beach, or when I get there, then when the bear starts eating me, I'm going to die. And when he thought about this, it was with a kind of eerie, calm detachment. Like he wasn't sad or mad. It was just kind of a fact. This was going to happen.
Third personing is what it's sometimes called. Sometimes it's called third personing. Or at least that's a term I've heard and I've used sometimes. Where you're in that state where it's like, well, this is happening. It's almost like it's not happening to you. It's happening to someone else that looks like you. That's what it seems like. But you know it's you, but you're detached from you. And you're like, well, okay, guess this is it. That's about it, honestly. And before anyone asks, yes, if you watched enough of my channel, you know I've been in that position multiple times throughout my existence. It's a wonder I'm alive for the moment. Man. Well, I mean, at least he survives, I guess, for a little while. I don't know.
But as Matt was kind of making peace with his reality, Rich fired that flare gun shot, and that ball of chemical fire exploded basically right in front of the polar bear's face. And the polar bear, who was startled by the flare, instinctively whipped its head to the side, up, and then down again, and it didn't let go of Matt. And so Matt was whipped like a rag doll up, and then was slammed down into the ground. And when Matt hit the ground, he heard the sound of his neck breaking. But as Matt was laying there, the bear released him from its jaws, and then behind Matt, the bear turned around and began walking away. And so Matt could hear the sound of its big paws moving away from him, and suddenly Matt's thinking, oh my god, I might survive this. And so he tried to lay as still as he possibly could so as not to attract any attention, and he began repeating in his head over and over and over again, please bear, go away, please bear, go away. But as if out of a horror movie, as Matt is laying there repeating this phrase, he hears the sound of this bear stopping, turning around, and start moving back towards him. And so Matt's just thinking, okay, it's going to come back over here, it's going to bite my head, and that's the end. But luckily, Rich, by this point, one of the trip leads, had run down closer to the beach, reloaded his flare gun, and right as this bear was going to bite Matt again, Rich had fired that flare, and once again, the chemical fire had kind of exploded right near the bear, causing it to get startled. It turned around, it ran off, and this time the bear did not return.
Lucky. Absolutely lucky. But freaking flare guns, that's all you got? Seriously? Y'all got lucky. The bear didn't really want it. Because if the bear really wanted it, the flare gun wasn't going to stop it. At all. The bear would not care. It would not care. It would still take Matt. But the bear didn't really want it. So y'all got lucky. Oh, brother. Y'all got lucky. That bear could have killed everybody. Everybody. And banging pots and pans and stuff. Seriously, why not throw rocks? At least there should be plenty of rocks around, right? Or sticks or stones of some kind. You know what though? Honestly, it's whatever, right? They chose to be out in nature. They chose to be, prepared just for leisure and not for what might possibly really happen. They got lucky with the flare gun. That's their choice, right? If people want to go out and die, that's their problem, not mine. Let's keep going.
It would turn out Rich and Marta, the two trip leaders from the Sierra Club, had chosen a location for this campsite that was so heavily trafficked by polar bears, it was referred to as a polar bear highway. When all of the hikers, which included Marta and Rich, had been given their safety brief when they were staying in those plywood structures at that base camp near the runway, well, part of the brief was whenever you make camp in the Torngots, you want to be at least a quarter mile away from water. Go way inland because the polar bears hunt and fish and walk around right along the edge of these fjords. But despite all 7 members of this Sierra Club expedition being experienced wilderness backpackers, none of them really appreciated just how dangerous it was to be camping or even hiking around in known polar bear territory. And so this is why they ultimately ignored the safety brief and set up their first camp just a couple hundred feet away from the water's edge.
They ignored the safety brief. And they're the reason why the safety brief just got like 2 hours longer. Wonderful. Awesome sauce. See, this is why we can't have nice things. This is why we can't have nice things. Because of idiots like this. Oh, we've got our electrical wires and flare guns. Oh, we're perfectly fine. We'll be okay. No, it's just that the bear didn't want it enough to just kill all of you. That is the only reason. Everybody's going to be like, oh, well, the flare gun worked out. Yeah, it worked out that one time. With a bear that was not really wanting it. Oh, people are so stupid. Let's keep going.
And even prior to the attack on Matt, when the group literally saw polar bears wandering around near their camp and even at one point had to fire their flare guns at the polar bears to get them to leave, the group still decided it was best to stay at this particular campsite. Perhaps they believed their electric fence they had set up around the perimeter of their tents would protect them from these polar bears, but obviously that had not been the case. The bear that attacked Matt had been totally unaffected by their fence. Matt would survive this attack, but really only because one of the members of the expedition happened to be a medical doctor, and so they were able to stabilize Matt until help arrived. Matt's injuries were extensive. They included a broken skull, a broken jaw. He had slash marks and puncture wounds all over his head and his neck, and all of those wounds got horribly infected. And also his voice was permanently changed as well because the bear also slashed his vocal cords.
Oh, brother. He is all screwed up. Poor dude. Poor freaking dude. And none of them were armed. A flare gun, that's all? That's all you got? A freaking flare gun? If this dude had like a, I don't know, like at least like a Glock 9 or a Glock 32, and emptied the magazine into the bear's face, it probably would have ran off immediately. But freaking, oh, brother. Oh, brother, whatever. Poor dude didn't have to suffer like that, but oh well.
Following the attack on Matt, Parks Canada, which is the agency that oversees all of Canada's national parks, including Torngots, has mandated that any organization going into Torngots National Park has to have a polar bear protection plan in place. As for Matt, he does not make a big deal about his near-death experience. In fact, he kind of makes light of it and sometimes even makes jokes about it. As for the polar bear that attacked him, Matt holds no ill will. If anything, the attack has made him more interested and appreciative of the apex predator. In August of 2014, so 11 months after Matt's brush with death, he returned to the Torngots and even visited the actual site of the attack, perhaps to get closure. Except this time, he was in the company of an armed polar bear expert.
Okay, so people are allowed to be armed out there. Okay. Okay. But you probably have to have like some special permission to do so, right? Because it's Canada. Yeah, you probably have to have some special permit or special something. Oh, you have to apply to be able to have the capacity to defend yourself. Makes a lot of sense. But hey, kudos to Matt. He's a trooper. He's a damn skippy trooper. He got his face bitten off and went right back for more. And look, he's smiling and everything. Or maybe the bear took a chunk out of his brain. I know it's messed up to say, but that's a possibility. That's a possibility. You know, people's like, you know, brain chemistry can be altered, and it could change who they are or how they act or whatever, or their character or demeanor or whatever. That happens. So yeah, let's keep going. But yeah. Scheiße. Mierda. Está cansado. Yeah, once this gets published, like, dude, I'll be asleep by then, hopefully. But yeah, Matt's a trooper.
So that's going to do it. If you got something out of today's episode and you haven't done this already, the next time the like button asks you to get them cereal, say yes, and then go to the store and buy the huge single biscuit shredded wheat cereal. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. We have a podcast called the MrBallen Podcast that puts out brand new podcast exclusive stories on Monday mornings, and on Thursday mornings we put out remastered audio of our best YouTube videos. Again, it's called the MrBallen Podcast, and it's available exclusively on Amazon Music. Consider donating to our charity. It's called the MrBallen Foundation, and it provides support to victims of violent crime as well as their families. Monthly donors to the MrBallen Foundation Honor Them Society will receive free gifts and exclusive invites to special live events. Go to MrBallen.Foundation and click on Get Involved to join the Honor Them Society today. We have 2 additional YouTube channels, MrBallen Shorts and MrBallen en Espanol. We also post near daily content on TikTok, Facebook, and Snapchat. All of those pages are just called MrBallen. If you want to get in touch with me, please follow me on any major social media platform and then send me a direct message. My username is just @MrBallen, and I really do read the majority of my DMs. Check out our merch at shopmrballen.com, and if you have a story suggestion, please submit it to our subreddit, just called MrBallen. It's linked in the description below. So whether I see you on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, other YouTube channels, the podcast, wherever, just know that I really appreciate your support, and until next time, that's going to do it. See ya.
All right, there we go, folks. There we go. MrBallen, hiker gets eaten alive and lives. Damn it, I'm so tired. This will probably be published at like, I don't know, 12 or something today. I woke up like super duper early. So after the live stream I only got like an hour of sleep. So yeah. Thus I am exhausted. And having to try to keep myself awake. Hey, Shmoo. Yeah. Don't compromise safety and security, okay? Don't participate in any place or any organization that forces that upon you. And if you do, well, you're a fool, and you deserve what happens to you. You do, because it's your choice. It is. So yeah. Description box, there's stuff down there. The comment section, that's for things. Underneath the video, there's clickety clicks. Yeah. Oh, damn. Okay, so be good. Be safe. Make your life for yourselves. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Badger out.